In 1995, nearly 100 years after Frank Baum's The Wizard of Oz, Gregory Maguire wrote a book titled Wicked: The Life and Times of the Wicked Witch. It gave an entirely different perspective on the Green Witch of Baum's imagination. In The Wizard of Oz, we view the unfolding events from the perspective of Dorothy. In Maguire's book, Dorothy is a very minute figure, very small character. Instead, we view the story from the so-called Wicked Witch of the West, her point of view. Now the monster, the evil witch, is human, complete with a vulnerable identity. Maguire gave the green woman a name, Elphaba. It is said it was a combination of L. Frank Baum's initials. Maguire also gave Elphaba a story, including an account of her birth. In Maguire's book, Elphaba was born with a birth condition as a result of a one-night tryst. You see, Elphaba's mother, who was married to another man, hooked up with the governor. It appears he drank an unknown potion that was green. Therefore, Elphaba was born green. She was different than society's norm. She was ridiculed for her odd skin color. Do you see what Maguire has done? He viewed a character otherwise portrayed as evil and gave her a story, one where perceptions are questioned. In 2005, Winnie Holzman wrote a play titled Wicked. It was based on Maguire's novel. Let me read to you what Holzman said about Elphaba. She wrote, "Are people born wicked? Was it possible for someone to change one's moral stripe? To be born blameless and become evil? Or does one have a kind of kernel of evil inside, like cells that are predisposed to becoming cancerous?" At that point, the project took shape, she said. So the idea was to write a story of someone who was really bad. But the minute Elphaba appeared on the page, sharp-toothed, smelling like dog urine, appearing more of a beast than a human being, I couldn't help but love her, the author said, as a parent loves a child. I couldn't make her as bad as I originally thought she was going to be. But I couldn't make her a saint either. She's a little bit morally corrupt. So from the beginning, in both the play and the novel, Elphaba was a misfit. People did everything they could in order to stay away from the green child. She also experienced no love from her parents. However, when her sister Nesseros was born, the parents needed Elphaba now. You see, Nesseros was born without the ability to walk. Therefore, Elphaba, her older sister, became her caretaker. When Nesseros was ready to go to college, Elphaba would go in order to help and care for her sister. The two were preparing to leave for college. Nesseros received glittering slippers, and Elphaba received no parting gift. So once the two sisters arrived at college, Elphaba was assigned a dorm room, not with her sister, but with a young woman named Glenda. That Glenda. Glenda and Elphaba were complete opposites. Glenda was white as the pure driven snow. She was lovely, but not very smart. A little bit manipulative. Elphaba, her skin greener than the color of cabbage, was not lovely in societal standards of beauty, but she was so smart. The two girls, who detested each other from the beginning, eventually, through time, developed a friendship, which was fine, except it all changed when a love interest moved onto the scene. Actually, events unfolded when two love interests entered the story. The first was when Nesseros, Elphaba's wheelchair-bound sister, with ruby shoes, desired a man who didn't return her affections. The second occurred when a young man fell in love with Elphaba and not Glinda, the blonde bombshell. Glinda was used to getting whatever she wanted. When the man of her dreams pined for Elphaba, Glinda seethed with anger and envy. Meanwhile, distraught that the love of her life did not return her affection, Nesros, Elphaba's sister, stole the sacred book of spells in order to give her legs that could walk. While in spell-making mode, Elphaba, a huge advocate of animal rights, entered the room and endeavored and succeeded to release the caged animals, including the talking monkeys. Soon, Glinda, Elphaba's former friend, spread a lie to the villagers. She claimed that Elphaba had stolen the holy book of spells, which was a horrific crime. And in the midst of all this turmoil, there was an awful incident. Can you guess? Whereby a house fell from the sky and landed on Nesros, killing her instantly. Events spiraled, and we all know what happened to Elphaba in the end. She succumbed to the same destiny she succumbed to in the Baum novel. So by the time the story ends in Maguire's Wicked, one is actually sad for Elphaba's fate. After all, she became the victim of oppression and lies. In Frank Baum's version of The Wizard of Oz, he portrayed an individual, the Green Woman, as evil incarnate. In Wicked, the family and the community was portrayed as awful and reprehensible. The community. Finding Oz author Evan Schwartz writes about the witch. Only when others assigned her evil powers did she appear evil. In this way, the Wicked Witch is a metaphor for our irrational fears. Not only are individuals often held captive by their fears, but entire nations can be controlled by the rule of fear, just as it was in the land of Oz. In both stories, The Wizard of Oz and Wicked, we are influenced by propaganda and how that story is told. In other words, the truth is bent in order to influence the compassion or the ire of the reader. For example, in Wizard of Oz, you and I are easily convinced that killing the Wicked of the Witch is not a bad thing, because we've been persuaded to believe that the green woman with the eerie laugh and frightening monkeys is in fact a personification of evil. We are led to believe killing the witch is the right thing to do. We are convinced it's the truth. Here are a few quotes from Minnie Holtzman's book. The truth is not a thing of fact or reason. The truth is what everyone agrees on. A man's called a traitor or a liberator. A rich person is either a thief or a philanthropist. Let me pause and ponder that for a minute. Is one a crusader or a ruthless invader? It's all in which label is able to persist. There are precious few at ease with moral ambiguities, so we act as though they don't exist. That was from the Gimmery, from Wicked. Sure, the two stories, Baum's Wizard of Oz and Maguire's Wicked, are fiction, but they both point out how effective propaganda is in the acceptance of acts of evil. Wikipedia describes evil as the intention to do harm. Although, get this, the description has been disputed. This gives me pause in a good way. I'm glad the public domain description for evil is not wholly agreed upon. Quite possibly, it means that the public may have a little more depth of thinking than I suppose on a daily basis. While I agree that evil involves the act of causing harm, I'm more intrigued with the idea that evil has been given a graded system, a system of acceptability. For example, there is an accidental evil. Referencing the Wizard of Oz, Dorothy arrived in the land of the Munchkins, perched on her bed in a house that dropped on the Witch of the West, the sister of the Green Witch of the West. It's the Witch of the West so bad what we perceive as the wicked witch. Is she so bad that all she wants are the shoes that were formerly owned and worn by her dead sister? You know, the infamous red ones from the movie and the silver ones from Baum's book. Years ago, when asked if there was some presence, something, such a thing as evil, I answered, no, but there's brokenness. Brokenness is when an individual is not whole, when that person suffers or is in pain and then causes another to experience distress or agony. Brokenness. Today, I continue to believe this somewhat, but I also believe that evil persists not as a dark force, but as an attribute of human nature. It's like this: we have within each of us the capacity to harm. Some of us have it more acutely than others. For example, it's been said that 3% of the world's population has no compassion, no empathy, meaning there exists a number of people who don't have the capacity to understand the pain and the suffering others experience. So that one, new science is giving me pause for that one. David Frankfurter, author of Evil Incarnate, expressed his understanding of evil this way. He wrote, "The fundamental humanistic stance is that evil is a discourse, a way of representing things and shaping our experience of things, not some force in itself. The most horrible atrocities, those of us who have studied religion under the shadow of Auschwitz, for example, can hardly ignore the significance that must be rendered sensible as human actions within proper contexts." So to discuss evil in the context of human experience, it's messy. To say evil is an outside force is clean and clear-cut. It becomes something outside of ourselves that we don't have any control over, we can't contend with, because it has nothing to do with our actions. This is dangerous, dangerous thinking. Evil is not a witch, a wizard, a broomstick, a person with odd skin, or a faith that is unfamiliar. Evil is ignorance, false claims, fear, and disrespect. It is present in history, in folk tales, and in selected texts from some holy traditions. The intention is to cause harm. It's present in contemporary media, you and I are seeing it, in culture and political agendas. You're not going to argue with me on that one, are you? Mark Twain said, "The political and commercial morals of the United States are not merely food for laughter, they are an entire banquet." So listen, here's the point of this two-part exploration regarding evil Oz and the wisdom of witches. I want to ask you now, to whom have you assigned evil? As an individual said recently, Unitarian Universalists don't really acknowledge evil. It's about unethical behavior. I won't argue. So perhaps the word evil is too strong a word. Let me put it this way. Who in society are the people you disregard, I disregard? Who are the ones we are most challenged to love? Who have you labeled mean, cruel, rotten, or wicked? So here's an exercise to broaden your mind and your ability to become more compassionate. In the quiet space of our gathering, I'm asking you, Unitarian Universalists and guests, to silently identify your prejudices. We all have them. Nothing is coming to mind. Let me help you. Here's a short list of things that I have heard people say, even in our UU circles, and they're coming across as an unloving comment. The white straight man working for a corporation, the young black woman with many children, the unemployed individual, the tattooed young person, the Catholic, the Christian, the atheist, the pagan, the immigrant, the blue-collar worker, the one who works for the military arm of the government, the politician, the wealthy person, and the impoverished person. I have heard unkind things said about those who have dogs, those who have lots of cats, as well as those don't have any pets at all. The list goes on. So my aim is to ask, what negative attributes do we secretly assign to one another? Can we melt the icy assumptions that we have developed over the years? Can we pause before we say what comes first to our mind? So there's a book called Ask Not What's Wrong with You, but Ask What Happened to You. Bruce Perry and Oprah Winfrey wrote this book together, and it's wonderful. Because I have to tell you, as a Unitarian Universalist struggling to honor the worth and dignity of every individual, even some politicians, I struggle. But you know, now that question about being curious about not, what is wrong with that person? Why would they go around saying that? What happened to that person that causes them to be this way? It changes a little bit and involves a little more compassion. So as a final nod to the Wizard of Oz and Wicked, let me share this. Remember how a bucket of water led to the demise of the green woman? Did you know that it is said in myth and in dream work that water represents the subconscious mind? May we probe the depths of the conscious and subconscious mind, continually seeking renewal, a renewed awareness that melts the seeds of lies, oppression, and overall suffering. Now, finally, because I can't leave you on such a serious note, I'm going to bring Ed over, and we're going to give you 4 quotes from the theatrical production of Wicked.
I know you don't want to hear this, but someone has to say it. You are out of control. I mean, they are just shoes. Let it go.
Yes, you see, I'm Glenda Upland of the Upper Uplands. I've applied to your sorcery seminar, and indeed, that is my sole purpose of attending the Sheaths seminar, to study sorcery with you. Perhaps you recall my essay, Magic Wands, Need They Have a Point?
People who claim they are evil are usually no worse than the rest of us. It's people who claim that they are good or anyway better than the rest of us that you have to be wary of.
Where I'm from, we believe in all sorts of things that aren't true. We call it history. And so mote it be.